Utah got it done by landing Aaron Dunn, a four-star offensive lineman in Utah, is staying in state, going to be playing for the Utes in 2025. What does it mean that Utah add another four-star up front for the 2025 class, and what will Dunn bring to the University of Utah? That's what we'll be discussing on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen. Greatly appreciate all of our everydayers out there. If you're in the market for a second listen, make sure you check out Locked On College Football. Friend of the show, Spencer McLaughlin, has you covered on all of the latest when it comes to the sport that we all love so much. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by FanDuel. You can make every moment more with FanDuel because as the playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like I want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a bonus boost or a bet daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. You can visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is JT Wistricll, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. And on today's show, excited to break down Aaron Dunn's commitment. We got to talk about what it means for the 2025 class as a whole, as Utah did move up in the recruiting rankings. And at the very end, want to talk about something significant to what we saw actually in the Olympics today was something that Team USA was able to do that I actually think can apply for Utah. So I hope you'll stick around with me at the very end there. But first, we got to talk about Aaron Dunn. And this is massive news. Full transparency, I'm out of town. That's why we're in an undisclosed location. I didn't plan on doing a show today. I had recorded one the previous night to put out. But then when you land a four-star offensive lineman, and I know it's an offensive lineman, so some people don't find that as exciting. I find that so exciting that I wanted to record this show. I found that so exciting that I went and bought this little temporary mic for all of you who are watching on YouTube. So new mic, new location, same show I want to deliver to all of you because it's important to talk about Aaron Dunn. It's important to talk about Utah landing a four-star offensive lineman in the class of 2025. You know, people were talking about like, hey, this class isn't feeling as strong as the other one. You see some comments and rumors like that, and this class is really starting to shape up. Look at last year's class. Utah only had 2 4-stars. They already have 2 4-stars, and they're still firmly in the mix for Jerome Miles, which would be obviously the get not just for this class, but probably Utah's biggest commitment since Fano and Lander Barton, which I know were just a couple of years ago, but like still, it's just that would be a massive get to land a 5-star receiver. But we'll talk about the skill position, give those guys their shine another day. Today is about Aaron Dunn because Aaron Dunn, the Spanish Fork High School, soon to be grad, has got another year to go, is going to be continuing his football career inside Rice-Eccles Stadium. Utah beat out Oregon and USC for Dunn, and that's huge because what are Oregon and USC? They're no longer Pac-12 schools. They are Big Ten schools. So anytime Utah is able to beat out one of the big dogs, that's something that gets me fired up. And I've talked about before in the past. To me, whenever Utah loses out to those schools on recruits, it's not a negative because like for a guy like Dunn, like, yes, he's an in-state recruit and that'd be awesome. And you want to keep those guys in-state. But it's more paramount though that you don't lose those to the other in-state schools like a BYU, and especially not to other teams in your conference. When you're going to lose them to the Big Ten and the SEC with the gap that's growing there, I'm just not going to toss and turn and lose sleep about that because there is just a separation point that's going on in college football. And doing what Utah's done, developing talent, because you're not going to land the same level of recruits as those big dogs, even though that wasn't what was happening in the past for Utah. That's just going to become even more important now as that separation exists. But landing a player like Aaron Dunn is a reminder that it's still possible for Utah to swoop in and land high caliber and high quality players like an Aaron Dunn. And one thing that was huge for Utah is the fact that Dunn was in the state of Utah. He said to 24/7 Sports, who announced his recruiting and had the whole breakdown in the live stream and everything, that it was huge to be able to play and stay in his backyard. Especially with a place like, or just anywhere, right? When you grow up in your hometown, like you want to stay close by so your family can come to see you and everything. We see a lot of guys want to do that, right? So this is where it was huge for Utah to be able to keep Dunn in state because he clearly wanted to stay in Utah, but BYU wasn't down to his final last 3 schools. So it was big that Utah made the final cut and then, of course, was eventually able to land Aaron Dunn. So what kind of a player is Utah getting in Aaron Dunn? Well, they're getting someone who's 6'8", 290 pounds. He's a top 200 player, 157th nationally, a top 20 tackle. He's 16th overall, and he is the second ranked player in the state of Utah. So it's a monster get for Utah. And Dunn is a monster. I mean, you're talking about a 6'8" offensive lineman. That's about the best adjective I can use to describe a 6'8" offensive lineman. He is someone who's got all the size and tools to be successful. He has an 80-foot wingspan. Oh, that might have been wrong, but he has an 80-inch wingspan. Excuse me. But so a hulking long wingspan, right? He's got long arms. He's got that 6'8" frame, so he has a good base he can set from and just simply overpower and overwhelm guys. Turn on his highlight tape. That's what you'll see, him overpowering and overwhelming guys, because he's simply just that strong, that imposing, that powerful because of that size he has. His strength is off the charts too. I think I said before, I want him just to continue to work on his pad level a little bit, because look, Aaron Dunn's a really good player. There's a reason he's a top 200 player, but it also benefits him, and he is bigger than stronger than anyone. So I think when he gets to that next level, that's where the adjustment period comes, right? Is okay, everyone is also big and strong. How do you then refine your technique in a few of those things? But his technique's already pretty good, right? And he's athletic too. That's another thing. He's played basketball a lot growing up. Spanish Fork, the Dons like to let him get out in space and wreak havoc, because he does move his feet pretty well too. And he is so big and strong, and he plays with a little bit of mean streak too. Loves to toss guys into the dirt. So this is an offensive lineman that excites me, that Utah is able to land one of the best players in the class of 2025. It kind of went dormant for a little bit, at least news-wise, that I saw on the Dunn front. So I wasn't sure where Utah stood, but once that announcement was made, I was overjoyed. Like I said, this is big for Utah to be able to beat out those schools for a 4-star offensive lineman. And you know what also gets me really excited? If you look at the last 3 classes that Utah's brought in, 23, 24, 25. Those 3 classes combined 4-star offensive linemen. Spencer Fano, Caleb Lomu, both of who are going to start this year, more than likely. Isaiah Garcia, the best offensive lineman, I think the best player in the state of Utah last year. If it wasn't him, it was his teammate Isaac Wilson, who's also at Utah, of course. And now you get Aaron Dunn. That is a fantastic offensive line collection that Utah's assembling under a great offensive line coach, which we know Jim Harding is. So it gets me fired up about the future. And 24/7, they put out a video talking about Dunn's commitment, and the recruiting expert, who I'm blanking on his name right now, but he did a good job of pointing out and bringing up in the video, saying that he believes Dunn is a guy who can slide in and play guard some too. In fact, recently at a camp, the expert was discussing that he saw Dunn play center and guard. I do not think he's a center at next level. I think he's more than likely a tackle because of that size. But look, however they're going to get a guy like Dunn on the field, I'm just excited to see him when he is on the field because of his size, his stature, the potential he has. You don't see 6'8" guys who share his weight at 290 pounds that move as well as he did. Make no mistake, Aaron Dunn is an incredible athlete, and I think has all the tools and the potential when you look at the footwork, the athleticism, the strength, just the mean streak too. I think he has the chance to be an elite offensive lineman for the University of Utah. He's going to play his first game against Olympus High School too. So, and that's not too far, just over on holiday. So if you guys want to check him out too, you can go see that. High school football is coming up. We get it back very soon in the state of Utah. So that's something exciting that we'll have back soon. And yep, love that Utah was able to add Aaron Dunn. And it's just another great addition to the class of 2025. And that's what I want to talk about next. Let's start now that this 2025 class added another 4-star. Utah has, I think, 15 players, maybe 14 in it now overall. I want to talk about this class and some of the things that I like most about it. So I want to continue to talk recruiting on this August 9th, August 9th, Friday edition of Locked On Utes. We're going to be discussing that in one moment. But first, I want to talk with you more about our great friends at FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games. And the sports, they're not sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So you can head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. And you can get ahead on the fall too. College football season right around the corner. I think Utah's in for a pretty historic season. If you guys do as well, head over to FanDuel and capitalize on that. Cam Rising Heisman odds, for example. Yogi Roth was on this show not too long ago talking about what he thinks Cam Rising could potentially do and winding up at New York. So do you think Cam Rising is not just going to be in New York? Do you think he's going to take home the trophy? You can head over to FanDuel if you want to capitalize on that idea. Then also look at some of the other things FanDuel is going on. Of course, NFL bets, but at Major League Baseball, we're in the midst of the season right now. I was recently at a Braves game, and I know for me, I love betting on some MLB action. So you guys can head over to FanDuel and do the same. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. So make sure you guys head over to FanDuel.com today. Also, want to take a second to remind you all that there is another great second listen out there for you, because we, of course, appreciate you making Locked On Utes your first listen of the day. So you can head over and check out the Locked On College Football podcast, where Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready on everything exciting on the gridiron, with discussions on the upcoming season and the never-changing landscape of college athletics, including conference realignment, the transfer portal, the new college football expanded playoff, and more. Locked On College Football is available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And Spencer, hey, we've had him on the show a few times now. He thinks Utah's winning the Big 12 this year. So even if he did not make that prediction, I promise I would still vouch for him. As you guys know, he does a really good job breaking everything down. So make sure you check out Locked On College Football today. Now, Spencer will mostly be focusing on the 2024 college football season. And that's, of course, what we'll mostly be focusing on here at Locked On Utes, because that's what we're gearing up for. But while we still have some time, and I will say, we got to see some fun scrimmage highlights from Utah. They did post on the team X account, which I thought those were fun to take a look at. Dallin Bentley was making some grabs. He's a guy I find fascinating. And they also posted Caleb Lomer making a catch. So I thought that was interesting. But Bentley's a guy who I talk a lot about, and I have a fun episode coming out soon about this Utah tight end room. Brant Kuithe, Caleb Loner. Oh, excuse me, not Caleb Loner. Caleb. No, we're not on any Calebs. Brant Kuithe, Landon King, Carson Ryan. I think it's the best tight end room in the country. Dallin Bentley is just another body in there I feel really good about. I think he's the fourth best tight end. I think maybe Mickey Sukaturaga is a better blocker, right? But like, Bentley's an elite pass, has a chance to be an elite pass catcher. And I think he's a really good tight end that other schools would be able to even make more of a difference at too. So love seeing him out there. Isaac Wilson had a nice touchdown pass to Dorian Singer. I can't wait to see the type of season that Singer's going to have. I think it's going to be a monster one. And yeah, I thought it was fun to see the insight there. We also saw a touchdown run from Mekhi Bernard. So fun to see the little images from the scrimmage. And I can't wait for on Monday night, so Tuesday on Locked On Utes, when I'll be talking about it. We're going to find out how everything from the scrimmage went. We'll see how the quarterbacks played. That's something I'm really excited to hear. We also saw another clip of Hunter Andrews at running back, which I'm very curious to see how much we're going to see of him this fall, but feels like he's got a legit chance to contribute in the backfield, which I did not expect to be the case for this freshman, but only time will tell how it happens. So that was something there, but we'll have time to break down that on Tuesday's show. On Monday's show of Locked On Utes. And yes, I'm going to get to the 2025 class in a moment, just taking care of some housekeeping notes. Really fun episode. Spencer McLaughlin joins me. We talk about Cam Rising's Heisman chances, the comments that Yogi made that inspired that episode, and also where Cam Rising ranks amongst the best quarterbacks in college football. Really fun discussion. Hope you guys will tune in for that one. Also, now we got to talk about the 2025 class in totality. So I really like what Utah has been able to do with this class too, because I think there's something important to remember when it comes to recruiting rankings. Because if we look at recruiting rankings now, Utah, good addition, right? And a 4-star offensive lineman. That means you're going to move up the rankings. They're now 45th in the country. So top 45 class for Utah. They're 9th in the Big 12 overall. And some of you might hear 9th in the Big 12 overall and go, ugh, that's not very good. But first, I want to say two things. Number one, this is who Utah's ahead of in the 2025 recruiting class. They're above Oklahoma State, Arizona, Kansas, Iowa State, and a little school called BYU. So those are who Utah's ahead of in the rankings. Now, who is Utah behind? Well, first of all, I will say this. Texas Tech, Houston, and Kansas State all immediately follow Utah. So if Utah lands one more good, and this is where I don't know how like narrow the recruiting rankings are, but all it would take for Utah to land like one really good 3-star, maybe even one more 4-star of coast, and they would instantly go from 9th best class to 6th best. Actually, that'd be 5th best class because they're leapfrogging those 3 teams. Actually, it's 6 as I do math because I was a journalism major, not a math major. But anyway, so yeah, Texas Tech, Houston are some of the schools are ahead of this Utah team. It's actually very interesting, by the way. The teams that were highest in the Big 12 were TCU and UCF, 21st and 22nd. So what does that mean? First of all, it means recruiting is important, but recruiting rankings, once again, do not win the college football season. Your player development is the biggest thing that wins college football games. That's why Utah, time and time again, right? Why was Utah still beating USC and Oregon those years? Because their player development was better. Recruiting is important, but don't get caught up in recruiting rankings because it's always about what those players turn into, right? What Devon Vele turns into. How about shout out Devon Vele? Had that nice catch in the Denver Broncos catch. What Sione Vaki turns into. Shout out Sione Vaki, first preseason game for him, just led the Lions in rushing yards amongst all of their running backs in his very first preseason game. And a guy that we didn't consider a running back just a year ago. And now he's leading an NFL team in the preseason in rushing yards. Pretty crazy. That's the job Utah does, developing talent. And I think they have plenty of talented players and running backs in this class, or just talented players overall. But so we mentioned Aaron Dunn already. The other 4-star that Utah landed is Kristen Thatcher. Thatcher's a guy, 6'2", 205, just electric when you turn on the tape. Everything you want in a linebacker. I mean, he's elite. The guy who's great vision, shoots the gap, physical tackler. I think he has a great opportunity to be a starter for this team next year. I think he has a chance to be a Lander Barton type, right? Walk on Utah right away, or walk on the campus, not be a walk on, but step foot on campus right away. Let's say that. That sounds better. And start right away. That Thatcher has a great chance to be that. And while we're talking about the linebacker room, that's what I think Cyrus Polu's got a shot to do as well, too. Sure, he's only 3-star, 6'2", 205, but I really like what I've seen out of Polu as well. So I like the linebackers that Utah's been able to have, and that's without even mentioning a guy like Max Fonomoana. I think I butchered that last name, so I apologize, but he's another guy that excites me too. You know, you get a guy like Nila Tupau, an edge rusher, so you get a pass rusher as the positive impact player. Speaking of the defensive line, Carson Kafusi, an elite defensive tackle over at Skyline High School, 6'4", 252, got the physical profile that I think would benefit this Utah. How about Tavian McNair, Sky wide receiver? We've broken down his game before, 6'2", 180, got that large catch radius, good hands. I think he could be a nice addition to this team. So, and we could go on and on with certain guys, right? Like a couple of the ones I'll just mention really briefly that I'm also really excited about, like a JJ Buchanan and a Shelton Fuller. Both those guys will pair well together at safety. Buchanan, a long, lengthy athlete at 6'4", 200. Fuller, exceptional speed and physicality. Wyatt Becker, that Moose Bingham on the show several times. He thinks Becker's going to be a fantastic get for this Utah. And that's a guy who is a top 50 quarterback. He's actually ranked 40th in the nation for his position. So, and I should say, speaking of like position rankings, only players that play on, or Utah has one offensive lineman outside the top 100 for position. It's 111th for Soren Field. And then a couple of the defensive linemen that don't rank inside the top 100 for their position. But outside of that, Utah has done nothing but add top 100 players at their position, right? Jason Stokes, the cornerback, he's 96 ranked too. So, and all these other guys high up there too. Like a guy like Thatcher, for example, he's the 27th best at his position, and he's the 5th best player in the state of Vegas, or in the state of Nevada, excuse me. So that's a massive get right there, right? So what has Utah done? They've added talented players with a high ceiling that are going to buy into their system. That's what I want to see out of a recruiting class. I don't need to see, and look, Jerome Miles would be the cherry on top for this. And I know I had the episode earlier this week where I was talking about, I do think it will be very hard for Utah to land Jerome Miles. But the one thing that Utah still is going for them is they can offer playing time. Jerome Miles has a great chance as a 5-star receiver to come to Utah right away and have the opportunity to see the field early, just like Clark Phillips did, just like Lander Barton did. So I still think Utah is in the race to land their first ever 5-star. But for the players they've already got in the 2025 class, I really like it. They've addressed the linebacker, which is a position after this season when I expect Karene Reed and Lander Barton to depart, and maybe Leavani Damuni will too, right? That'll be kind of a bare position, right? So it's good to get a young influx of talent in. They've continued to bolster the offensive line. They've added several defensive tackles. I think that is really key because I could see Junior Chifuna, Aliki Vaimahi, of Peppa if he had a big year. Like there's lots of defensive linemen that could leave Utah. So that's why it's big you have Asiat. It's big you have Sione Matuapaka, like that. These are monsters. Samisi Tualonga, right? Like from modern day, they just landed him. So great to have those guys. You have several talented athletes and just players in the secondary that I think can be difference makers too. And mention the addition of a receiver too in McNair. So tons of quality, talented players who have a chance to be good. This is what's nice for the position that Utah is. And I hope all of these guys work out and have fantastic career. But the truth is they're not all going to work out. But Utah doesn't need all of them to work out because the truth is with every recruiting class, you have some players that don't work out, some players that transfer away. You just need some players to contribute from each of your recruiting class. Utah has done a good job hitting on their recruits. They do not hit on all their recruits because no college football program hits on all of their recruits. But this Utah team has done a good job adding talented players that fit their system with a high ceiling. And many of these guys are going to see their ceilings maximized at Utah. I think there's a number of players in this class who are going to be instant impact players because a lot of the guys in this class share similarities who players in the other classes have also had that Utah has then developed. And those players have then been part of teams that win at an extremely high level. So I really like this 2025 class. A lot of future starters and potential big names being added to it. And hopefully the biggest in Jerome Miles is coming soon. But right now, the biggest is Aaron Dunn, along with Christian Thatcher, 2 4-stars now in the 2025 class for the University of Utah. You love to see it. I mentioned big games earlier, talking about the level that we want to see these players reach. They'll be playing in some big games. I was thinking about something watching Team USA take on Serbia today, and it's something that I think actually relates to Utah. It's a weird correlation, right? You're going to want to stick around and hear how I tie that together, as I will be discussing that in one moment. But first, want to take an opportunity to talk to you all about our great friends at Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in price views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime truly takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. You can pick out a number of games because Gametime is there for you, and they have so many fantastic features that make it the best ticketing app in this podcaster's opinion. Whether you're talking about their seat views, where you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what kind of a deal you're getting. How about those zone deals where you can save even more money when you choose a section and let Gametime choose the seat for you? There's also that all-in pricing toggle line. This feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Also, with Gametime, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. You can take the guesswork out of buying LB tickets with Gametime. You can download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code Locked On College. That's capital LO and college, all capitalized on. So for $20 off your purchase, you can head over to Gametime. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, closing out this Friday edition of Locked On Utes with an observation I made while I watched Team USA. Hope you guys have been enjoying the Olympics as well. I'm wearing my USA shirt. Not sure all of you can see. Appreciate all of you who do listen to the end of these videos as well too. I know I have the view. I have the ability to track to see how long the average listen is too. And obviously not everyone makes it to the end, but I do just want to say appreciate all of you everydayers who do take the time to consume the end of this show. If I have not touched on anything you want me to talk about in fall camp, or just about this Utah football team in general, drop it in the comments. I'll try to. Someone earlier this week mentioned they wanted to hear about something with Cam Rising and what he could do to become the greatest football quarterback ever. That episode was supposed to come out today, if not for Aaron Dunn, and if not for Aaron Dunn committing, right? So like I do try to listen in, take what you guys say. So please leave a comment below about that. Real quick, my big game takeaway though. So watching USA take on Serbia, and Serbia, their shots were falling. They had Jokic. They had the best player on the floor. Think about that. The best player on the floor. Their shots were falling. But what was the difference for Team USA? They had multiple guys who had been there in massive stages in that moment, who are some of the best at what they do and are exceptional at coming through in big moments. Do exactly that. Came through. Team USA's moving on. Have a chance to play France for gold in men's basketball, by the way. That's what I'm talking about. And then Serbia will go to the bronze medal game. So how does that relate to Utah? Well, Utah has two players who are as experienced as they come in college football. When you're talking about Cam Rising and Brant Kuithe, and I do not say experienced with a negative context because it is an extremely a positive thing. The longer you do something, the better you are at it, right? Like we can all speak to that in our jobs and life and just in general. The growth we see from players from their freshman year to sophomore to junior year, like it's just evident time and time again. Cam Rising and Brant Kuithe have won on some of the biggest stages in college football. No, they haven't been to the college football playoff. I'll get to that in a moment. But they've been to conference championships. They've been in big games, right? Like Cam coming through against USC, Brant Kuithe being a part of that special 2019 team, right? Like Cam Rising and Brant Kuithe are some of the most experienced players in college football who have won at the highest level. And what does that mean about those two players? I don't question them when I get into a big game and it's tight late. I know they are more than capable of coming through for the University of Utah. And that's a big thing because we've seen teams in every sport, we see this, where they get in a big game and what happens? They don't perform at the same level. And Utah's going to have some guys who haven't played in games of that magnitude that we have to see what's going to happen. But I have no doubts that Cam Rising and Brant Kuithe are going to perform at that exceptional level. And that's what it means, right? Why did Team USA win? LeBron, Steph, KD. If Utah wants to win games on the biggest level, the difference is going to often be Cam Rising, Brant Kuithe, and a lot of those other experienced guys. Maybe it's a Dorian Singer who hasn't been in those level of games, but I think is more than capable of stepping up, right? Because we've seen him have big performances and make big catches on many occasions, right? Championship experience, winning experience, showing up in the biggest moments, that has to matter. Because if you want to be a great player, that's what you do. This Utah team loaded with players who have stepped up in big moments and loaded with guys who, when their college careers are over, will call. I mean, Cam Rising and Brant Kuithe, I believe, are great collegiate players in terms of what they've done for the University of Utah and how good they are at their position. I have Cam as one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the sport. That's what we'll talk about on Monday's show, as I mentioned. So I think he's one of the best in college football, clearly. And then Brant, obviously, I think he's the best tight end. So I think those guys have that experience that in tight and close games is going to make the difference for Utah because I know Cam Rising and Brant Kuithe can get it done under pressure. And some of you maybe already typed this on your keyboard even. Well, that Utah doesn't have any college football playoff experience. That's right. Most guys in college football don't because a lot of the guys that do, they leave right after. Sure, Jalen Milroe, he's back. He's really good. I think he's one of the 5, 6 best quarterbacks in college football. But what happened? He was in a Rose Bowl, played pretty well, right? And he lost. You know who's also played in a Rose Bowl and then lost? Cam Rising. And I know it's the college football playoff versus not, but Rose Bowl's the granddaddy of them all. And we saw Cam Rising play amazing in it. Both times, I'll add too, before he got injured, was the only reason Utah was in the game against Penn State. So even last year, right? Michigan, J.J. McCarthy's gone. Michael Penix is gone. So a lot of the best teams and the most experienced in college football, they're gone. Carson Beck, 0 college football games. Carson Beck is a guy who does play well in big moments. He also didn't play great in the SEC championship game. I'm not saying Cam Rising is better than Carson Beck. But I'm just saying even the guys who have had good regular season doesn't mean they always play their best in those games. Cam Rising and Brant Kuithe are 2 guys that I do expect to play well in those games. So I just think this Utah team, if they get in those college football playoff games and it becomes, a high scoring shootout or Utah needs that 2-minute drive to come through, I have the confidence that Cam Rising, Brant Kuithe, and so many of these other players on this Utah defense and offense who have been a part of one or both of the Pac-12 championship teams will come through because I've seen them come through before, and I believe they're going to have the chance to do it again. And I can't wait to see them make a run at it all this fall. So that's going to do it for this week of Locked On Utes. Thank you all so much for tuning in once again. Can't wait to come at you again next week. We got to get answers to fall camp. How did this scrimmage go? And we'll also be breaking down some fun discussions talking about Cam Rising's ranking as a top 10 quarterback, not just in Utah history, but also where does he rank amongst the current college football quarterbacks? Then we also have to talk about Brant Kuithe in this loaded tight end room. I think it's one of the best in college football. And I think Brant might be the best tight end in college football. So much fun stuff to get to. We are so close to football coming back. Can't wait to continue to talk all things Utah football. Everyone have a great weekend, just like the University of Utah did, because they just landed a 4-star offensive lineman. Now that's how you start off the weekend, right? Once again, everyone, thank you for tuning in to Locked On Utes. We'll see you next week.